welcome. And roll call, Brett.
Commission Member Brown, Fuller,
Present.
Goepel,
Present.
Greer,
Present.
Harris,
Present.
Vice Chair Smith, Chairman Vieira.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome and invite Minister Janet Helm from First Christian Church to lead us in the invocation, please.
Let us pray. God of all people, we rejoice in this opportunity for these persons who have gathered in this place today to do the work which our community has entrusted to them. I ask your special blessings be upon the work of the Criminal Justice Commission today. Guide each of them that they will take very seriously the agenda that is before them. May they face each issue without prejudgment, and may they make the best decisions possible. Grace every person here with your wisdom and vision, with your holy humor, and with humility during this time. I ask all these things in your precious name. Amen.
Please remain standing and join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we will start off with presentations. And today we have with us Local Heroes Week at Clear Channel Stadium, Mr. Will Thornhill.
Well, first, I just want to thank everybody for allowing us to come out and present this great event that we'll be putting together from July 20th through 24th this year. As you may know, over the past 15 years, the Jethawks have worked with countless community organizations to raise money for charities here locally in the Antelope Valley. And something we started 3 years ago was our Guns vs. Hoses charity softball game. And it was a great event, a lot of fun, and it garnered a lot of press from locally and regionally for what we did that day. We raised just over $2,000 on that first event. So going off of the success that we had in 2009, we built up the event to a Local Heroes Week last season. Invited the fire department out on Friday. They brought 6 rigs out, brought out their mascot. They had some guys sing the national anthem. It was just a great event. The sheriff's department, I'm not going to say they one-upped them, but they did a pretty good job. They brought over a helicopter, did a flyover. The crowd was huge. A lot of good response from our fans, from the community, and of course we raised a lot of money then as well. So going off of the success of those past 2 years, we decided to expand this event to involve everyone who we consider local heroes. And we've involved the U.S. Forest Services, AMR, CHP is going to be involved this year. The Department of Corrections is going to be involved this year, along with the Palmdale Sheriffs, the Lancaster Sheriffs, and the LA County Fire Department. Neighborhood Watch, we're getting involved for this season as well. And of course, we're going to do CERT certification at the stadium too. It's an all-encompassing event at the stadium this year. Because it's such a big thing and we expect to bring the entire community to get involved, we plan on raising $10,000 this year for Fallen Heroes, which is an organization that I'm sure is close to everybody here in this event here. So basically, the event's going to run this way. As you can see in the sheets that I gave everybody, each day leading up to Sunday, which is Fallen Heroes Sunday, the individual entities are going to come out to the ballpark. They're going to sell tickets for their individual charities. So, for instance, the fire department, the Elisan Rouge Foundation, it's their Burn Foundation, is what they're raising money for. So every ticket that they sell for that Friday night, we're going to donate half the proceeds back to that individual organization. And each, CHP, U.S. Forestry, every organization is going to be able to pick an individual charity in which we're going to donate money back to. And that all of that, the entire week is going to lead up to this huge culminating event called Fallen Heroes Sunday. And the great thing about this is that working with Marvin Christ and Tim Fuller, we've put together something we've never done at the stadium. And for every ticket we sell for Sunday's game, at the stadium, online, walk up, anything, we're going to donate $3 back to Fallen Heroes. You may have come out to a ballpark before. It's a 4,500 person capacity stadium. So with all of your help and with the help of the heads of each of these organizations, we plan on marketing this event and making it a huge community-driven event. If we sell out the stadium, we could potentially raise more than $10,000 on that day alone. So it's really just going to be a great gathering of all of your organizations, a great opportunity to raise a lot of money for charity. It's a community-driven event, so it's a great public relations, community relations opportunity for each organization, as well as the Jethawks, of course. We're just really excited about this year's event. We met with the heads of each department yesterday, and everyone seems ready to rock and roll on this. City of Lancaster is jumping behind us as well, and we're really excited about it. And I just wanted to bring it to your guys' attention and make sure all of you are involved. Come out to the ballpark, maybe throw out a first pitch, and enjoy an evening out at the stadium. So thank you very much for your time. Is there any questions about the event?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I just wanted to, I've had the opportunity to attend a couple of the meetings, and I want everybody to know that it's an extremely impressive organization, and Will and the Jethawks staff have done just a whole lot of work to make this happen. I think it's going to be a great event. Really appreciate what you're doing this year and expanding it. I think it's a great opportunity to really highlight public safety and all the hard work of the men and women in public safety in the Antelope Valley, and also to raise awareness for disaster preparedness among the population. So that combination, wish you the best of success, and I think that, where they've done in the past too, ticket sales will generate revenue that are actually sold, like additional tickets that are sold by the organizations get the money. In this case, for the Fallen Heroes Sunday, every ticket that's sold goes to the Fallen Heroes. There's half of that money raised goes to the Fallen Heroes, and so it's a great event, and I wanted to thank you for doing this. I know it's a lot of hard work.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Public business from the floor, agendized items. Do we have any?
We have one speaker.
Okay.
This is the time for citizens who would like to address the Criminal Justice Commission on any agendized item. Please complete a speaker card and identify the agenda item you would like to discuss. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Lyle Talbot.
Thank you. Just received my second knee transplant, so a couple more weeks I'll be ready to kick somebody's butt. None of you people, though. I just had some questions I wanted to bring up about public safety, especially at the 24-hour fitness gym. There was an incident there last fall that I keep bringing to your attention, and I think this morning I had some questions about a report that was the Sheriff's Department report, but I've spoken with the captain, and we're going to talk privately after this meeting, so I don't want to waste your time any further. Thank you.
Thank you, and wish you well on your speedy recovery with your new knee there. Consent calendar. I'm assuming that each of us had an opportunity to look at the minutes from last meeting. If so, could I get a motion on that, please?
I move that we approve the minutes of the April 13th Criminal Justice Commission meeting.
Any discussion?
Second? You want a second?
Okay. Vote on that? Okay, thank you. New business, discussion of and recommendations to City Council regarding changes to the city's current massage therapist ordinance. I know at our last meeting we had quite a lengthy discussion with regards to that ordinance, and we had postponed it. The only question I had, and if I could just clarify, is that I know that you brought some new revisions last time around, and those have been sent out to the public for their review prior to the day, right?
To all of the massage establishments and all the massage therapists that are licensed to the City of Lancaster.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, discussion?
I guess I have a question, and that was regarding one portion that's in the red line version. Let's see. Page 5 of the document, the red line copy. I don't know, does everybody have a copy of that? I guess my question is, it falls under the broader category of, I believe, disqualifying conduct. And the red line version shows the new, under comment, new passage. So it shows that irrespective of whether the person was charged or convicted of such an offense. So I guess that the larger text says somebody that is engaged in conduct that will constitute an offense is described in subsection 1 or 3 of this ordinance. It's now going to be amended to include language that says even if they were never charged or convicted of that. So in other words, is an allegation alone. And what does that have to be? A public allegation? Something in a newspaper? Is it a rumor? What does it take?
Thank you. This is part of what we discussed last month. Disqualifying conduct and the kind of conduct that falls under this, irrespective of whether they were charged by the DA in a criminal case, would always come out of an undercover operation conducted by the Sheriff's Department. So it wouldn't just be somebody calling the city and saying, I think that there is prostitution going on. We would never act on that. That might be the genesis of an undercover operation. But any kind of conduct that falls under disqualifying conduct always comes out of law enforcement operations.
But if law enforcement thought that someone had engaged in this conduct that was illegal, what would the reason be that they wouldn't be ever prosecuted? Why wouldn't they ever be charged?
Well, they might be arrested for it, detained for it, but the DA might subsequently decide for whatever reason not to take the case up, not to move forward with a criminal case. That happens quite often, as I know you're familiar with. And so once again, we're back to the city has a legitimate belief based on undercover law enforcement operations that prostitution has occurred, but for a variety of reasons the DA has not moved forward. Given that, though, the city still really needs the tools to be able to shut that business down. For example, last month, Commissioner Fuller, you mentioned that you had gone out on the undercover operations that I believe were conducted in March, and there were 2 establishments at which prostitution activities were found to occur. I know that in one of those cases, the massage therapist is being convicted and the DA is moving forward with that case. The other one, I still haven't had any status on. In that business, if the DA decides not to prosecute that therapist for prostitution, the city has no tool, the way that the code is currently written, has no tool to shut that business down, because only based on a conviction can you revoke somebody's license. So these revisions are intended to allow the city in administrative proceedings, not criminal proceedings that have any potential for incarceration, to revoke a business license when we have legitimate belief based on law enforcement operations, even if the DA has decided not to proceed with a case.
Okay, well, we have Mr. Franklin here, so I guess I'm just going to ask him, even though he's not at the podium. In the case that she just mentioned where there was 2 different establishments, one, the owner, proprietor of the massage therapist is being prosecuted, and the other one is not. The challenge I have is just the underlying principle that someone is going to be, in essence, punished in some way, either by administrative hearing and a permit process, without really ever having been, this doesn't say arrested, this says if they haven't been charged. So if they haven't been charged, tell me what would the difference be in the 2 cases that are pending right now that she's talking about? Is there some reason why somebody that we should think that the district attorney's office isn't, fully prosecuting all the cases that are clearly a violation of this prostitution that we're concerned about?
Well, if it's clearly a violation, my guess is it is going to be prosecuted. We look at these with an eye toward whether or not it's going to be successfully prosecuted to a jury. Now, I haven't looked at these particular 2 cases. Obviously, if there's always an appellate process, if you think that the other person should have been prosecuted by the appellate process, if you don't agree with the filing deputy's decision, that would then go up to my assistant head, and then eventually it would come up to me as to whether or not we should prosecute it or not. So I guess I'm a little unclear right now. I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but right now it reads if you're charged. Is that the?
Well, the new proposed revision says that it would be disqualifying conduct irrespective of whether the person was charged or convicted of such an offense. That's what they're proposing to add. And that's on page 5 under number 6, numeral 6, under disqualifying conduct. What's problematic to me is it seems like the party is going to be punished and in essence found guilty even if there were never charges brought. And that's what I'm reading.
Well, the reality is, even if they are charged, say we file the case, it's still ultimately up to a jury as to whether or not they're going to be convicted of that particular offense. The mere fact that it's charged, and I'm not trying to make this confusing with legalese, but that is the district attorney's opinion that there's sufficient evidence there to convict the defendant. Ultimately, a jury's going to listen to all the evidence, see if they believe that the witnesses are credible or not credible, whether there's a reasonable explanation for this particular conduct occurring or not. So the mere fact that it's charged is you have basically just an opinion of a district attorney and may or may not be the law enforcement that submitted it, whether, you know, most likely would be sheriffs in this case, that there was criminal conduct. But in order to establish criminal justice, you have to have a conviction by a jury, or the individual has to plead guilty. If you don't have any of that, or if you have a jury trial and the person's acquitted, then obviously that's going to be your decision as to whether or not you still want to take some type of administrative remedy. But as far as the criminal process goes, ultimately that's going to be a call from the 12 jurors who are seated at listening to the evidence. So there is I think on an administrative level, certainly you do have a problem here. But that's not to say you couldn't proceed on an administrative level, because that's different than criminal. And criminal's a higher standard of proof. It's a higher standard in order to get a conviction. You know, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. We deal with that in the Army all the time. As I indicated when I first started to sit here, I also work with I'm a staff judge advocate for the 311th ESC, and we do that quite often, where we might not be able to proceed criminally. We would proceed administratively and then take somebody, you know, get them out of the Army on an administrative basis. But to cut to the chase, I do think you have an issue here. Just being charged, I would think, is problematic.
But as an administrative function, there's a follow-up process with informal setting and an opportunity for hearing and due process. And that's I'll relate it to similar as a DMV hearing, whereas you may not have had a criminal filing as it related to a DUI, for example, but DMV could still determine based on the presentation of the facts that you get your license removed. So, I mean, I think as it relates to that, there is a process that would be established that's in place that gives persons a right and an avenue for due process. And so, yes, I agree with you that there's probably some mitigating issues as it's related to that versus criminal versus administrative, but and recognizing the fact that the threshold criteria is lessened on the administrative side. There also is laws that govern due process and informal setting and how that's administered.
And the city still does have to make its case in the administrative hearing by the preponderance of the evidence that this person should have his or her license revoked. It is the lower threshold, but you still do have to make that case. And of course, if the hearing body or the hearing officer upholds the revocation, that person still has remedies in the court. They can petition the court for a writ of mandamus to order the city to reinstate the license if the judge found that was appropriate. So there are lots of remedies and due process built into this system, even though it is administrative and not criminal.
And so when you say there's a lower threshold, what is it, a preponderance?
Preponderance of the evidence as opposed to beyond a reasonable doubt.
I mean, I guess my concerns are, as I already stated, the fact that the person doesn't have to be charged. I am familiar with, I understand how administrative hearings work. The comparison to the DMV just underscores my concern. I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but, I don't necessarily always feel when I'm at the counter at the DMV that I'm on even footing with whoever's helping me behind the counter. And there's not a lot of places to go for alternate help with vehicles besides the DMV. So, without, I think last week I probably irritated a couple of attorneys with one of my comments, and today I may have the DMV employees after me when I leave. But I'm just being honest. I have a real difficult time with, we're talking about somebody's livelihood too. I clearly am not here to support or defend or try to protect prostitutes or somebody engaging in unlawful conduct. But when somebody can have their livelihood taken away, and we're talking about not even being charged, and I understand the administrative law process. I really do. That is just a genuine concern that I have.
I understand that, and I respect that position. I truly do. And my concern, and something that the city has experienced over the last couple of few years, is in a case that, again, for whatever reason, the DA decides not to move forward with the case, or they knock it down to disturbing the peace, and they're convicted of that. Again, as currently written, the city has no basis to revoke that person's license. And if Commissioner Fuller was out on the undercover operations a couple of months ago and talked to the undercover officer and believes that there was prostitution solicitation going on there, I don't think that the fact that maybe that person ends up not being convicted of prostitution means we all know the prostitution happened there based on being out there and reading the report and so forth. Shouldn't the city have the opportunity to make its case to a hearing body that even notwithstanding that nobody was convicted of prostitution, we believe prostitution occurred. Here's our proof. This is why we believe it. Don't you think we have the right to revoke that person's license?
Well, but even before this ordinance, prostitution is not legal in the city of Lancaster.
Of course.
And so, and I have never in the last 40 years heard anybody say anything about this department up here or this district attorney's office less than they were extremely aggressive about prosecuting all crimes.
Absolutely.
I don't hear that in all cities, in all portions of the county, but I certainly have always heard it here. So when you talk about a 415, you're talking, your example is that it could perhaps be prostitution charge and it gets reduced to a 415, correct?
Yes.
How about if it never starts at a prostitution level, it's merely a 415 conviction for something unrelated to prostitution? So I think the way I read this, any 415 conviction, I didn't see it limited in any way, being one that's reduced down to a 415 from what started at something more significant. I'm just going to guess that unless something's changed, a 415 call is something, Captain, still happens all the time, every shift. Lots of 415 calls for things other than prostitution. So,
sure, but
does the way that's written out, does this only consider 415s that resulted being reduced down to a lesser to a 415 from something else?
I think
I didn't see that language.
Well, I think the way that it's written is that if a lower charge is pleaded to in some sort of resolution of the matter, is the thrust of it. Again, the city would never move forward with trying to revoke a business person's license or a therapist's license because of generic disturbing the peace. The only real grounds for revocation of a license the city is interested in are a couple of things. One, if there's prostitution going on. And two, if there are serious building code or health and safety code violations inside that business that cause a substantial potential harm to clients and to other people who enter that business. Those are the only two grounds under which we would ever consider or contemplate revoking somebody's license. So generic disturbing the peace would never get on our radar.
I've got comments as well. You've used my name twice in terms of attending that sting operation, but I wasn't in the room.
Understood.
So, in saying that, that I would agree that there was prostitution that take place, what I can tell you is that what I observed and the fact that there were people arrested. I wasn't in the rooms, I wasn't privy to the tapes, I haven't seen the reports. So I can't agree nor disagree with anything you've said in terms of those two sting operations. What I've heard is that there's one that's being prosecuted and one that we don't know about. The last month, at our meeting, we spent the better part of an hour, maybe a little more than an hour, talking about this issue, and I brought up a lot of points of that at that time, and I don't want to repeat them now, other than to say that for Commissioner Greer, I share the same sentiments and those that I expressed last month on that issue. I still believe that the existing laws are sufficient for control of prostitution and other issues that could be dealt with or that would arise with our massage parlors, and that this particular ordinance targets an entire population of people, you know, that we're really going after a smaller subset, but it makes it onerous for everyone involved. And that I also believe, especially in the clause that you pointed out, in terms of it, to me, it circumvents due process of law, and that being frustrated with that due process, to me, it doesn't provide a good rationale for adding that clause or strengthening the ordinance. So, without going into all the other discussions, that's still the way I feel.
Also, we talked last month about actually getting the massage therapists licensed. Is it true that this ordinance is basically set for the majority of it is for if they're unlicensed? That's what I got out of it.
Do you mean the state license?
The state license, right, for the massage therapist.
The majority of this ordinance was already approved by the City Council 4 years ago. The purpose of changing or amending the ordinance at this point is that the laws at the state changed, and so we have incorporated in here that if you are state certified, you obtain a business license, not a massage or therapist license, and that those that are state certified do not have to duplicate the process that they've already performed at the state, which is what we do locally for those that are not state certified. And then what we did add were just a few things on the arrests and things that we encountered over the 4 years during the stings that we had some problems with, and then just some administrative cleanup. And that ordinance went out with all of those changes to the therapists, I think 60 days ago. So they have had a long time to look at it. None of them had any concerns with it whatsoever. This will be our third mailing. We started December. We did one February, and we did one at the last meeting. So they've had 5 months now to review it, and I've gotten maybe 3 phone calls.
Well, we also asked what was the impact if we brought that up, that they would all become certified over the period of 3 or 4 years.
You would put a lot of massage and therapists and establishments out of business. The educational component for some of them, it's a matter, I guess, of paying for going to the school. It's the time studying for the classes. They have to get an education right now in order to get a license. This just takes it to a whole different level.
Well, looking at their website, you can get a conditional license for under 100 hours of coursework, and the practitioner license for under 250, and then the massage therapist is only 500 hours. I don't think that's very much training that needs to be done over a period of 5 years or 4 years.
I will tell you this, you will have 222 people down here, and they will be highly upset, and, I mean, they're not going to stand for that. When we did this ordinance originally, we had all of the therapists and establishments in the city of Lancaster here in the council chambers, and they selected 15 people that they thought represented the group. And we went through this ordinance and had maybe 5 or 6 meetings until the ordinance was satisfactory to them, to law enforcement, and to the city. And the educational requirement was an issue. We got it to the point where everybody was happy with it, especially those that go to the city college to get their certification. I think that a lot of people would be very upset if we changed it and made it all that they have to be state certified.
Well, I guess I'm asking, why are we singling out massage therapists when all other businesses have to have?
Because our ordinance, when it was done, it was not a requirement that they be state certified. This is so that the city is legal in that state certified licensees are treated differently. They only have to get a business license because they've already gone through the process at the state. So this was done before the state ever did what they did.
Right. But what happens if the state in 4 years says you have to be certified?
Then we'll have to change our ordinance.
Okay. If you look at their website, they're basically telling you that's what's going to happen. They even give you the city different ordinances that they can use right now. And if you look at it, you read between the lines, that's what they're going to do.
We'll come back in 4 years.
But why can't we change it now? Why can't we parallel what other cities are doing?
I don't know what other cities are doing if they're really truly doing that.
Well, I have an ordinance right here from San Rafael. They just did it last month, and
If that's a recommendation of this commission, then we will have a meeting with all of the therapists, and we will go over it, and we will talk to them about changing the ordinance. It's about public comment, and they'll have to comment on it. And if that's what the commission wants to do, we'll be more than happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question, Mr. Brubaker. You said that, I think at the beginning of this discussion, Chairman Vieira asked you if, in fact, the mailing had gone out again to all the affected parties. When did that happen?
It happened, do you have the exact date, Britt? I think it was a day or two.
Right after the last meeting?
It was a day or two after the meeting.
So I guess my comment would also be that, I think it may mean, so maybe it doesn't mean anything, but to me it means something that if we've sent this out 2 or 3 times and there's not a, watershed of people showing up here to discuss it, either they're not paying attention to it or they don't take a lot of exception to what's being proposed.
I would say they don't take exception because we have people coming in every day to renew their licenses. And
You're not hearing a lot of dialogue at the counter about.
No.
This ordinance is how many pages long? It's huge.
Oh, I don't know.
27, 28.
I have a lot of ordinances that are this size.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining about the size. Well, actually, I'm a little bit complaining about the size of the ordinance. But I guess my point really is that I read this type of document pretty much every day in the type of work that I do. I would say 80%, maybe more, of the people who work for me wouldn't understand it, even though they would be affected by similar ordinances that deal with car sales and laws and DMV and the rest of it. So sometimes I think lack of comment, it's difficult to then say everybody's happy with it. I think you might be able to state we haven't had a lot of people come forward and make negative comments about it, but I also think it's difficult to state that everyone understands it and therefore has no issue with it. All we know is that it's been sent out and we haven't received a lot of public outcry. They're two different things.
Elizabeth, I have a question. Why can't we do both? Why can't we exempt the people that already have licenses, go under this ordinance, but from now on require them to have state certified?
We can, but I'd really like to meet with all of the people in the industry and let them know what we're going to do and get their input before we make that change.
Is there, I mean, I'm concerned not putting people out of work.
I am too.
Okay, that's the main concern, but I also think that the state regulations are there for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So if we start weaning ourselves from the way that we've done it in the past and exempt those people, and if the new people want to do this, this is what we're going to require them, whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now.
Yeah, I don't mind adding a paragraph that gives them a year or two to get the education.
Right, but that would,
time.
I think that would solve
Yeah, that would be fine.
Commissioner Capel's objection, and it would also solve the city's problem as far as unemployment.
Absolutely.
Just real quick, let me clarify. Councilmember Chris, you're saying require them in 2 years to get state certified, or grandfather the existing ones, and any new ones that apply have to be state certified?
Grandfather the individuals that already have licenses, period.
Okay.
Okay? Anyone new has to have a license state certified within 2 years or a year, whatever the commission decides, and then makes that recommendation to the city council.
Okay, on the new ones, if they're coming in new, I would say they just have to be state certified. The ones that are already existing, that are grandfathered in, we give them a time period, and I'd have to talk to the ones that do this, the educating, to see if they could do it in a year or two. That would be better.
That would work for me.
Yeah, that's cleaner.
If the trend, as Commissioner Capel thinks he recognizes, is that it's ultimately going to end up that way, why wouldn't we just leave it alone, allow those that are in now to be grandfathered, and at such time if we're talking about a change within a few years, why wouldn't you be effective at that time, correct? And so
phase out.
I'd change a lot more.
The difference is that
you could always lose the eraser on number 6 too.
Dennis, the difference is we're going to have new employment within that period.
Between now and then.
Correct.
And we're saying I don't know that it's going to end up being that way, but after Commissioner Capel's research, he believes that, you know, the handwriting's on the wall, that ultimately we're going to see that change made in the next few years. So between now and then, why not still continue to allow people? It's not a requirement today. We think it's going to be in a few years. Why do we want to start imposing deadlines in 24 months or 12 months or 36 months on something that, unless this commissioner or the city council, when it goes back to them, recognizes and believes that that's in the best interest of the city?
By the way, excuse me for interrupting. I haven't checked the CAMTC website recently, and so I'm not immediately familiar with what they're talking about expecting coming down the next 3 or 4 years. But I know that last year, in conversation with a number of cities that were involved in the initial conversations of changing the Business and Professions Code, and in speaking with somebody at CAMTC last year, my understanding is there's a new Senate bill floating around out there somewhere that dials back some of the CAMTC stuff, in fact, that reverts back some of the criminal background work and so on and so forth back to the local level. So I think it's very much up in the air which way this is going. I don't think that bill has been introduced yet, but I think it's very much an open question whether the CAMTC is going to grow and build or whether it's going to kind of just fizzle out. I think that's still up in the air. So I don't think you can necessarily bet on the fact that in 3 years something is going to be a certain way. I think that's an open question.
It seems to me that the city is just trying to really just be in compliance with the law is my understanding with all of this. So I'm not quite sure if there was an ordinance that was done 4 years ago, if we really we might find a lot of different things wrong with it and things like that. But I think essentially the city is just trying to come into compliance. And when and if the other laws come in, then we comply at that point. So I'm not quite sure that it serves our purpose to maybe dissect a lot of different things that might not be, that we might not like or whatever in these ordinances, and just help the city. You're trying to get into compliance. My recommendation is we just go ahead and do that. And when it comes to the point where they say, everyone has to be licensed, then we comply with that and give everyone time.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Just to restate that, if I understood that clearly, is that you're motioning that this ordinance be adopted as amended at this time?
Yes.
That's a recommendation to
As a recommendation to the City Council? Is that
yes.
correct? Discussion, comments, questions?
Well, I just wondered if she had any interest in amending that motion to delete this proposed language at number 6 that says, irrespective of whether the person was charged or convicted, or if it's her intent for that to be included. probably answers the question.
Do you have a second?
No, I don't have a second.
I think it was sufficiently explained. I understand your concern with the verbiage, but it was sufficiently explained for me that certainly the city's not going to go forward, and I know I certainly wouldn't want to be charged of something right off the bat, but it seems like they're a little bit more, lenient in terms of going through the due process. So I wasn't as concerned about that.
Motion has been made.
I'll second it.
Call for the vote. Thank you. Okay, commission staff presentations, updates.
Just real quick, the council is looking for a recommendation. 4 votes, 4 noes, and 1 yes at this point is not a recommendation to the city council. It might be an opportunity to make a secondary motion so that your commission can make a recommendation to the city council, just as a bit of recommendation.
Comment that I would make is that it's evident to me, or it appears to me, that there's much more discussion that needs to transpire. I heard comments today from a council member who made reference to potential changes at the council level as well. It may be premature on this commission's part to go ahead and make a recommendation when there's further revisions that may come forward as well. My recommendation would that it would again be postponed until we're ever able to look at all the still outstanding issues that appear to be out there relative to this ordinance here, whether you take into account the education piece, the timeline, 3 years from now, the suggestion or comment from Councilman Chris. So I think that, I guess my recommendation, we postpone it until it's ready to come forward for action.
Well, for clarification on our part, this is staff's recommendation as an ordinance. If we're looking to you as well to give us direction then to amend the ordinance, otherwise we'll be coming back next month with the same ordinance. So it's your commission's, it's your direction, but at this point, this is our recommendation as staff, and unless directed differently, we'll be back here again next month having the same conversation. So I'd be happy to have the conversation today so that we can get moving down the road, I guess my comment.
At this point in time, for me personally, in terms of modification of the ordinance, I think it's important to add the clause that specifically allows for exempting the city license procedures for those who hold a state certification.
Okay, they would not be exempt. They have to get a business license, which costs a certain fee. So it's not an exemption. They just no longer have to get a massage therapist or a massage establishment license.
Right.
So it's not an exemption.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That is what I meant to say, and I appreciate you clarifying that.
Let's clarify, that is in this ordinance.
Right.
Okay.
And I would remove, and for me to be in agreement moving that forward, I'd say remove the other parts of it to make it more onerous on the individual and targets the entire population for the sins of a few, for lack of better words. So I understand what the city needs to do, which is comply with the state regulations right now. So if you'd like a motion, my motion would be to recommend to the city council to approve modification of this ordinance to allow for the language dealing with state certification and making it easier for state licensed therapists to do business in the city of Lancaster. Period.
And does your motion contain any reference to number 6 under disqualifying conduct?
Well, that would be any others, because there's others in there too that talk about if you eat or sleep in the establishment, for example. We went through a whole list of these in the last month that again are being, targeting these particular businesses. You can't eat or sleep in a massage parlor, but then we're building lofts for artists where specifically they can live and be able to work because it facilitates their work on a low income. And then we have another low income population. We're saying specifically we're not going to allow that doing it. So I don't see that, frustration with convictions as being the rationale for tightening this on an entire segment of population. So it would stay just in my mind that it would eliminate those things other than allowing for that state certification to make it easier for people to work in the city of Lancaster.
Okay, the sleeping component was already approved by the city council 4 years ago. That is not new. So that's already been
I gotta
approved.
look back at the red line.
Jason, could you bring back a revision that encompasses the comments made by Mr. Fuller and Mr. Greer and Mr. Capel?
Yeah, I understand Section 6.
I understand Section 6, that's saying
understandable.
deleted.
As it relates to other sections of the ordinance that the sins of the few or the, punish other people, I'm not sure what sections those are. I mean, as direction, we can remove any section you want, we can amend it. I don't know what sections those are.
I can go with the deletion of 6.
As soon as Commissioner Fuller's finished, I'm prepared to try to make a motion. So.
Well, there's, in addition to number 6, there's number 3 on the page before that, which talks about, or when the prosecution accepted a plea of guilty, no low contender, et cetera, right? So that would go along with it. And then number 6 is another one. And as I'm looking along here.
I'm sorry, are you saying you want number 3 out altogether, Commissioner?
The revision.
Well, no, he's just saying what was
Number
there.
3, the red line comments, that revision?
New passage, quote, or when the prosecution accepted a plea of guilty or no low contender with a charge of violation of California Penal Code, Section 415, any lesser included or lesser related offense in satisfaction of or as substitute for any of the crimes listed in the subsection. I think the argument remains the same, which then for number 6, where it is irrespective of whether the person was charged or convicted of such an offense.
Okay.
And
Sorry, remove the new passage.
Yeah, the no.
Correct.
Okay.
Or no low contender.
So if the DA's office files charges against somebody for prostitution, solicitation of prostitution, and later on amends the complaint to add a charge of 415 of disturbing the peace, and then dismisses the prostitution count in the furtherance of justice, that person then should still be able to keep his or her massage therapist license and conduct massage operations in the city. I just want to make sure.
If a person hasn't been found guilty for a crime, they shouldn't be punished. That's the point. So there's reasons why people plead down. I mean, I just happen to believe in the criminal justice system.
I do too.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's why I'm
this is
aware.
profession and business code.
Let's clarify, and I think it's important to clarify, the criminal justice system is one process.
Right.
This is not the criminal process. This is an administrative process that is separate and completely different than the criminal process.
Right, but it uses the inaction of the criminal process as a rationale for then imposing administrative process when it says if the district attorney's office looks at this and says we don't have sufficient evidence to prove that this person's committed a crime other than disturbing the peace or whatever it is that they're pleading down to, and therefore that's what we're going to do. In this ordinance, it's being stated, okay, but we don't have to pay attention to that on an administrative level. In fact, specifically, if that happens, we can and probably will take these actions. That's what I'm opposed to.
And let me clarify, and I think the ordinance is written because of that, and those are the complaints we receive. It's that we are unable to enforce our ordinance, or we aren't able to enforce those bad actors because of the criminal justice system. So we have a prostitution case that gets reduced or pled, and then they come back and the next day they're doing the same thing. The good massage therapists in this community have problems with that, and those are the complaints we get. So we're tied. Our hands are tied. Administratively, we can take care of those problems specifically with this ordinance that the criminal justice system, frankly, is not taken care of in some cases.
And no disrespect to the DA's office, because, everybody's got limited resources and a limited amount of time, and maybe it doesn't make sense to go to trial on a prostitution count. Maybe it makes more sense to knock it down to a 415 in the larger picture of limited resources. I understand that and I respect that, but again, that shouldn't tie the city's hands from somebody they believe is a prostitute from having a city license. That's the whole point.
We get more complaints from the massage therapists and establishments about the illegal ones than we do vice versa. So this is something they wanted.
Commissioner Fuller? Are you going to make a motion at this time? I mean, I'm prepared to if you're not.
Go ahead.
I'll move that we approve the ordinance as proposed, or not approve it, but approve and recommend it to the City Council of Lancaster for their action, subject to deletion of the red line comments that are proposed under number 3 and under number 6. And both of those are the items that we've already discussed today and we discussed at the last meeting as well. I'm not 100% in favor of all the language that's in the balance of the document, but those are items that I think are less significant and can certainly be addressed by the City Council, who's actually the entity that's going to take the action on this, whether it's to approve it, amend it, add language, delete language, or do nothing with it.
That's been moved by Commissioner Greer, seconded by Commissioner Fuller. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to commission, staff presentations, updates, reports. Number 1, arrest statistics. Sergeant Kreger.
If I may, Chairman Vieira and fellow commissioners, just to address the commission briefly before Sergeant Kroger gets into the arrest statistics. A couple of things. One, I want to give citizens of this city a huge round of applause because we've had some incidents over the weekend where suspects were arrested as a direct result of their involvement. One of the most noticeable that people may be familiar with is on the east side of town over the weekend. There was a tremendous amount of graffiti that was put up over one particular tagging crew. And Monday night, 2 citizens got involved, witnessed some further acts of vandalism, called even after they had been threatened by these taggers, to the point where one went back into the house fearing that they were going to retaliate right then and there, but still called. And another unit called and responded to right down the street to same group tagging up a block wall. He got involved, wrote down the license plate, so we were able to follow up those leads. Led to the arrest of 2 adults and 2 juveniles and got confessions for 31 of these incidents that they had done in a short period of time, and hopefully have just put that crew to rest permanently. So again, that goes as a direct result of citizens getting involved, helping us do our job. So I have to say that publicly, we really appreciate their involvement that led to those arrests. Overall, as you can see on the screen, and Sergeant Kreger will get into some of the things, but I wanted the commission to understand and know that overall in Jim Cobalt's action or absence, every Part 1 crime within the city is down year to date. So law enforcement, the community, and this commission and everybody involved is doing a great job in keeping the crime rate down. There's a lot of things going on, but I would commend again Jim for the maps that he prepares and how we're utilizing them. Because even though overall crime's down, there's still a lot of crime that is occurring. And I think I mentioned last month on some of the maps that he's developing for us. And do we have one of those maps? These are just one map, and you see them in a little different capacity in these meetings as far as the density, different parts. But he's been breaking down the city into our 4 districts and providing them in these different geographical areas. And I know this map's difficult to read, at least it is for me, as far as the text, but it really gives our teams the ability to pinpoint where the crimes are occurring, what the file numbers are associated to them, which crimes have suspects in custody, which ones don't, so we can really focus our efforts on the ones that don't have suspects in custody and try to apprehend those individuals. And those are, again, broken down into 4 geographical areas. We're just showing you one. But one of the things I wanted to bring to your attention is the use of these maps. I think we can go further with. And last week we met with members of the media, the local media, and they're working on maybe even making these maps available to the public from the standpoint that they could see which crimes are still unsolved and help us, just like these individuals did this weekend. So I think that would be a great benefit. How we're going to do that, I'm not quite sure, but we're working on getting that kind of information to the public so they can provide, they have the information they can call in and move forward with. The other map that's been really useful for us is well, that's a different, did you put all four up? The other map that Jim usually covers is the calls for service. And again, that's been of great value to us, and Kent will get it up there when he finds it, is if you find it, and maybe you won't. But that's been very useful, because if you remember last month, Jim had shown you the map of the frequencies of where the calls for service, and there were a couple areas that came up. Usually a number one area is the hospital, the station, the Walmarts and everything else, but our teams are able to use that as well to kind of pinpoint operations, because obviously the ones that were being notified through the hospital are crimes that have already occurred, and a lot of those are for different types of incidents, but the ones that we're finding a lot of value to are the breakdown of the different mobile home parks and the different geographical areas, or there's numerous. For example, well, the high school one, we have one of the high schools shows, based on the map, a large number of incidents occurring, but for the most part, when we look at it, it's the 459 audibles, not necessarily crimes. And the two Walmarts, the east side and west side, account for a large percentage of the crimes, calls for service. But again, a lot of that's because we have officers, deputies assigned to those Walmarts documenting everything that's occurring as well. But the mobile home parks are the ones that have really caught our attention, is the amount of calls we're getting in these mobile home parks in different parts of the city, and that's where the LANCAP and the TOP team can really use those maps in preparing operations, and they're doing so as we speak to address those issues. So I think we'll be able to dissect some of the crime a lot more effectively as a result of the maps that Jim's been providing us on a weekly basis. So thank Jim Colbo for that. And as far as the arrest statistics, I've always been proud to say that Lancaster Station historically leads the county, and Kent will just show you some of those statistics.
Good morning. Okay, we're going to take a look real quick at our April arrest stats. You'll see that we're slightly down in our Part 1 arrest for April, and there's really nothing significant about April, other than the fact that we had a really high month in March. March, we had 143 Part 1 arrests, which is extremely high. We're down to 125 for this month. No real significant areas other than grand theft auto. In March, we had 15 GTA arrests, and for this month, we were down to 1. Our Part 2 arrests for April were up slightly, up 6 arrests. We had a significant increase in non-aggravated assault arrests. We had a plus 20 in that category, and also in disorderly conduct, a plus 21 in that category as well. Again, this shows a comparison to similar-sized cities and stations within Los Angeles County. Again, as you can see, Lancaster clearly above the other stations in both Part 1 and Part 2 arrest for the month of April. We made a slight change. We were previously using Crescenta Valley Station. The captain requested we place Santa Clarita Valley up there towards the end. And you can see, based on the same size, we've got significantly more arrests than Santa Clarita.
Just one quick comment on that. The reason, again, I think I might have mentioned this last month, that makes it so impressive is that it's pretty easy to take people to jail when the crime rate is going up, because there's a lot of individuals out there. But what makes it so unique is when we look across the county is that our crime rate for Lancaster is actually dramatically going down, yet our arrests are going up. But it's, again, because of a lot of those strategic operations. We're taking the right people to jail, so it's a combination of the two that's working out, because some of these stations that are showing similar arrests, well, that's also, if you go look at their Part 1 crimes, their Part 1 crimes are all up as well. So it's a nice dynamic to have a lot of people going to jail when we have such a decline in crime.
And this slide will be a comparison of this year to last year. The red line representing the current year, green line previous year. As you can see, the Part 1, we had a slight decline there in February. We caught back up in March, and we're climbing back up to where we should be. Slightly down, -7 arrests from last year in Part 1 crimes, not too bad. Part 2 arrest, we're slightly down from where we were last year at the same time period. We're down about 412 Part 2 arrests for a total of a decrease in 419 arrests from where we were at the same time last year. But again, with the crime rate as it is going down in all categories, we're pretty confident that we're on the right track and headed in the right direction. And the numbers all look pretty good to us. Any questions?
I have one. What do you credit the difference in 15 to 1 on GTA to?
You know what, sir? I don't have the facts of those 15 GTAs. Occasionally, we'll get one little crew that hits a number of cars and results in a number of arrests. And once we get those individuals out of the picture, it declines again dramatically. If you'd like, I can review those 15 arrests from the previous month and let you know at the next meeting what that's attributed to.
That's right. I just wondered if there was any one significant. I had somebody steal a car carrier with 10 cars on it 1 month, or
no,
15 to 1 just seems
no.
really
You know,
significant.
we really have taken a close look at our GTAs over the last several years. And when I was working Detective Bureau, we took a really, really close look at it. The majority of our GTAs are recovered. They're not stripped. They're just basically joyride type activity where kids are stealing and they get a ride across town or whatever, and they're recovered within a short period of time. So we haven't had really any evidence of any sophisticated car theft rings or anything up here in this area. It's just joyride type stuff that we come across, and occasionally, and especially as the weather gets warmer, you'll see that the kids are out and about and partaking in this type of activity a little more frequently.
And generally, where are those cars? Where are they taken from? Are they from commercial parking lots? Or I know we talk a lot about the thefts out of cars, larcenies out of cars and driveways,
right,
or in parking, outside unprotected parking in buildings. So I'm wondering, are GTAs typically out of people's driveways, or is it when they're in the parking lot somewhere?
Parking lots, apartment complexes, things of that nature is usually where they're coming from. Yes.
In this particular case in March, it just happened to. There were a number of them that happened at the Lancaster Auto Mall, and there were a lot of locks that were punched out, and so they were grand thefts. But the cars actually never left the lot because Century Keys wouldn't allow them to open, so the cars just died. And I think there were like 6 or more on one of my favorite car lots there, and then there are some others around there as well. But anyway, that itself would account for it, and there's been steps taken since then to address that. But
one particular case example is what Kent's touching on. In our ComStat meeting last week, we talked about a vehicle that was stolen from Lancaster, was recovered in an area in Palmdale, and immediately following that, another vehicle was stolen from that area and recovered back in Lancaster. Someone's stealing the vehicles for transportation rather than walking, and we had some examples of that. And just to touch back on what the captain brought up, it is an amazing thing to see a crime rate dropping as significantly as it has, and see the arrest stats still up there as high as the station's been able to maintain that. And I believe what that initially was, you can attribute it to taking care of low-hanging fruit when you have a high crime rate. But it's a lot more difficult as you have a declining amount of crime to still carry those kind of numbers. So kudos to all the enforcement agencies here and the level of cooperation they all work with together jointly to maintain those numbers. That's an incredible feat, and that's not something you typically see.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sure.
For Captain Johnson. Well, you commented that the citizens had gotten involved, especially in this vandalism situation. Does the station, and same question I guess to the city, does the city and or the station send a letter to those people and thank them for stepping out and taking the time to do that? Because I know everybody, if you're at a function or a cocktail party, so everybody is concerned about crime and wants to do something. They all want to see something done, I should say. But to get people to actually pick up the phone and risk getting involved, especially if you've got somebody who's threatening to do something to them, certainly deserves some kind of recognition for that. It's been a big part of why I think the crime's gone down, in addition to the great law enforcement effort here in the District Attorney's Office of Prosecuting. It's also been all these Business Watch, Neighborhood Watch, and citizens in general that are just really finally, I shouldn't say finally, but are really getting involved and playing an active role. So I'm wondering, do we acknowledge and let them know that it is something unusual and we appreciate it?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the things we had a conversation when I first walked in, because obviously being new, well, I wasn't quite sure on the format. I actually, for these two witnesses, I have their number. I'm calling them personally because I was so impressed with their role in getting involved, and especially the woman that was threatened. I mean, that's pretty intimidating to have 4 taggers on the other side of a wall telling you, we know where you live, you better not call. And yet she still had the courage to walk in there and make that call. And I'm hoping this is one of those cases that these individuals are held accountable, because this is another, kind of like the massage parlors, we have a tendency to sometimes they get slapped on the wrist and they're back out. And she deserves a little more protection than that. But to answer your question, yes, I'm not only going to call them, but I spoke with the councilman about public recognition, and especially for these two, and even one of the robbery, somebody that helped us out with one of the robberies over the weekend. I'd like to publicly acknowledge, maybe at a council meeting, if they're interested in being acknowledged in that format. But either way, we plan on acknowledging them.
I have a question as well, and actually for Mr. Dorico, because the idea of sharing some of these maps, and they can become overwhelming, but in some sort of format with the general public to assist. And it just seems to me like if you've got a neighborhood where there's a crime activity and they can be shown a specific map, and I don't know what that one would be, but it might get people talking and say, there has been a lot of activity here or there. Is that something you guys have discussed and with your group, Lee, in the city of doing?
Actually, what we have now, Jim is actually at a conference right now for a crime back mapping conference with numerous other law enforcement agencies, and put on by the National Institute of Justice right now. He's there as we speak. That's why he's not here today. And the city has purchased crime mapping software. We have some implementation issues that we've talked about how we're going to disseminate that out and make it accessible. We already notify through our Neighborhood Watch Yahoo groups to notifications out to areas where things specifically happen. In this crime mapping software, we have the ability to take it down to one location, specific address, and take it out as far as you want to go out with it from that distance. And that's what we've been working together with the Sheriff's Department, is discussing those issues. The Corps deputies have been coming in regularly, working with and looking at that information with Jim as it's related to the information that's provided. The Sheriff's Department's currently going to a similar system with the same contract agency for that information. And I think eventually what you're going to see is anyone's ability to be able to access this information and determine what's going on in a specific area. The best thing that's going to occur here, hopefully in the near future, is when the sheriff's deputies go on the MDC system rather than their current digital system, and where we can do real-time information and feed that out to the area units. And then the beauty of that is you can reallocate your resources throughout the community based on what's occurring at different times, 24/7. So that's a pretty exciting thing, and I know we've been talking about that. The purpose of Jim being at that conference right now is to see how other agencies are implementing that exact format.
So you could foresee in the future that being used for public dissemination of information?
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that.
In the very near future.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Mr. Rico, yeah, follow up on that. I mean, I look at the map that's up here now, and I think how beneficial that could be when we're talking about this example right now where citizens have gotten involved in a serious vandalism case. For a Business Watch and these neighborhood watch programs, these are people that are already, they've demonstrated a desire to be involved and do something and try to make a difference. And to me, if those kind of maps were available to them, on a regular basis, updated stuff where they could see there's really a problem in or around their neighborhood, it may not be able to solve, may be able to solve some of the past crime that's happened there. Maybe they remember seeing something, but also maybe it makes them more aware and keep an eye out to help prevent problems in the future.
You're exactly right. As Commissioner Capel can tell you, he participated in our area meeting in one area, and what we did is we actually went and formatted it based on these maps, what had occurred, what Part 1 crimes were occurring, what Part 2 crimes were occurring in their area, and how they compared on a crime rate basis. And as one thing, as one of the first segments that we discuss whenever we have a neighborhood watch meeting with a new group is going over those issues, what's been occurring in their area, what we've identified as being the issues, and then also, the whole purpose of it is to gain intelligence from the individuals that live in the neighborhood based on the fact they know who belongs there, they know who doesn't belong there, what issues they're observing, and then that needs to be all factored into it.
Thank you.
One other thing, just if I may, they take it a step further, and it's all based on technology, but just so you're aware, one of the conversations we've had is to push it even further, to hit that untapped group of juveniles and youth that I think do want to get involved but don't really know how. And so there's been discussions with some of the groups on how we can maybe even move it to like an iPhone format, to where kids and the younger generation who's very skilled on using that, they could access these maps and then direct them straight to Crime Stopper type technology and be part of the solution as well. And I think that's an area that we're not getting enough response from. We're having a great response from Neighborhood Watch, Business Watch, the adults in the community, but I think we need to really figure out how to connect with the youth of the community as well, as far as helping us solve a lot of these crimes. Because the thing with, especially with this incident, to stay on the graffiti and tag, most of them, 2 adults were taken in custody. The majority of these individuals doing it are juveniles, and I guarantee there's friends of theirs or associates of theirs that know who's doing it. They just don't really know how to get involved without staying anonymous. So we're going to try to figure out a format to help them do that.
Okay, it's my understanding that we have a individual who'd like to speak on this agendized item.
Yes, Lyle Banks.
Gentlemen and ladies, I'm with the... Good morning. My name is Lyle Banks. I'm with the Quartz Hill Town Council. And the reason that I'm standing up here is because, see that little corner down there that's all white? That's Quartz Hill. Jim makes me up a map for me to present at my town council meetings. It is very helpful, and everybody really enjoys it. So I just wanted to let everybody know that it does help. He's been working with me for the last 4 months on getting these things together. We've got it honed down, and everybody out there in Quartz Hill is very appreciative. So it would help immensely if you could get them taken care of.
So when you get that information and you share that with the town council, does that go out into the community then as well?
Yes, sir. Okay. I take it to my people on our Tuesday, morning meeting, and then it's next Tuesday, I make a bunch of copies and we pass it out to the community as they come in for our meetings.
Great.
Okay? Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. From the California Highway Patrol, Captain Hoos.
Captain Hoos is, can you hear me? Captain Hoos is not here today, Lieutenant Schaefer. Without sounding like a broken record, let me also congratulate everyone here for the remarkable level that you all attain to here in this crime council. It's amazing to see the level of cooperation that's dealt with here. Having been a member of the department for 27 years, I've traveled in different counties and in different areas, and I assure you that this level of cooperation is not seen, across the board with other communities. And I think the crime rate has dropped significantly in this area due to efforts such as this to drop that. It's our purpose to be part of that in dealing with the vehicular traffic here in the area, which is obviously increasing as businesses come in, as people move in. The statistics for last month, for April, in fatalities, we've seen a drop, which is good news. We had a 50% drop last month from the previous year, and their overall year to date, there's been a 20% drop in fatalities, which is good news. Our total accidents were up slightly at 1% this month from last year at this time, and only a 6% increase year to date. However, we saw a spike in PCF, which is a primary collision factor of DUI accidents. There was a spike this month of 81%, went up from last year, and it's 18% increase from year to date for the valley. And then obviously that includes Palmdale, Lancaster, and all the surrounding county areas, all the way to San Bernardino County line. Our arrests, though, however, for drunk driving have gone up. We've seen 59% increase, and overall year-to-date 19% increase, which is good, and it's attributed much to some of our grants that we received. As you know, we have that highway corridor grant, which is now underway on SR 14. We were supposed to start working that grant back at the beginning of the year, but due to budget constraints, we could not utilize any of those funds. We started utilizing those funds in March, and since March and April, we've written, our officers have written 255 tickets on that stretch of highway, and our coverage is from Crown Valley on the 14 all the way up into the high desert here. The 14 project extends all the way down into the Newhall area, as you know, down to the 5 freeway. But 255 tickets on this stretch of highway here in the Antelope Valley. We've had also 15 DUI arrests on that stretch since the inception of that program. So we're seeing definitely an increase in that, which is good to get the drunk drivers off the highway. As part of our strategic plan, we also address the issue of auto thefts here in the valley. And I appreciate, and Jim's not here today, but I appreciate his numbers each month indicating, what our stats are on auto thefts. And I believe that many of them, as was talked about by Captain Johnson, is that it's a crime of opportunity, is what we're seeing out there. Jim points out many times that people leave their vehicles unlocked in their driveways. They leave items in plain view in their vehicles, and people go by and they look for crimes of opportunity, and when they can get in that car, they'll usually take it, either if it's just for joyriding or to steal something from the car or to dismantle it. And so I think the citizens of the area, of the community, need to be a little more aware of that. With the advent of the remote keyless entry on vehicles, there have been individuals who have taken advantage of jamming devices, that when you think you've locked your car and you hear that familiar click or that beep or that sound, some people don't listen for that. They just push the button, they think the car is locked, but there may be a jamming system out there that these thieves are using that will override that, and the people think their car is locked. They walk away from it. Now they have free access into the car, either to steal it or to burglarize it or take in, things from the car. So education is a big part of what we're doing as far as our strategic plan, to educate young people, to educate the community on what they can do to do little things as far as locking their car, making sure there's nothing in plain sight and plain view in their cars, being aware of their surroundings, where they're parking, especially if they go someplace when it's still daylight, and when they leave that establishment, if it's going to be dark, and maybe in a remote part of the parking lot. You need to think and take in consideration some of those things to reduce some of those crimes of opportunity. So hopefully, as a community, we can work towards that and educate the individuals more, and that's part of our strategic plan to do that with our programs. So, thank you.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting, I had not heard about those jamming devices before, but do you see that occurring in particular areas, retail? Or?
They are mostly in retail because there's obviously a large amount of people going to retail, going to businesses where they can target many, many vehicles at one time. But people just need to be aware of that. They need to listen for that click or be close enough to their car to know that their vehicle is secure and locked, rather than just walk away. Sometimes we forget, and we take our key out, we just click it like that, thinking that our car is locked and secured, and it may not be. So,
thank you. Okay, District Attorney update, Mr. Stephen Franklin.
Thank you. For the month of April, we filed 282 felony cases, and that encompasses 322 defendants. And as far as misdemeanor cases, we filed 837 for April, and defendants that encompasses 854. To kind of put, and again, that's for all of Antelope Valley, just not Lancaster. To put it in perspective, the only two counties that have a year-to-date higher felony count is Compton, which is at 1,989, so basically 2,000, and Norwalk with 1,460 cases. So those arrests that you see that the captain was talking about are being filed, especially given that's verified out, given where we are in relation to the most active areas, which of course are Compton, Norwalk. The other area I just wanted to touch on briefly is, and I think everyone, certainly law enforcement knows it, but I'll reinforce it. If there is a particular case, or if there's a sting operation, something that is on your radar, call me, or you have a designated land cap deputy, John Evans, who's excellent. He just got Prosecutor of the Year in the Antelope Valley. And we'll make sure that I'll make sure that there's somebody, if John's not handling it, I'll have somebody specially assigned to it so that they know it's on my radar. And if they know it's on my radar in particular, it's going to be handled appropriately. A good example is when I hear the vandalism case, I'm actually more concerned about the witness intimidation aspect. That's a strike. That's something that I'm very concerned with, and hopefully this is an adult that we can prosecute accordingly. So I would just put that out. If there's a prostitution sting operation that particularly interested in, let me know, or the designated land cap deputy. I know that John in the past has handled some major prostitution rings and gotten substantial state prison time on those. So absent that, if there's any questions, I'm concluded.
Yeah, I have a quick question. AB 109 passed last month, and as far as we're being told that all parole violators are going to be heard at the local courthouse, are you set up for that yet, or have you any information on that?
No, I have not been advised.
So there's nothing in place to take over the paroles in July 1st?
Maybe Mr. DeRico.
No, actually, that was something that's on my list of things that I want to bring forward to the commission as well as everybody in this room. With the passing of AB 109, we're going to have some impact as it relates to many issues that's within that assembly bill. So I was actually talking to Lieutenant Nelson about maybe a group of us and maybe some members from the commission as well as all the enforcement agencies represented here, sit down and have a discussion on what we believe the impact's going to be and how we're going to deal with it. Because as of July 1st, we're going to be stuck with it. So, and it is going to affect us to a high degree. And I talked to probation recently just about some of the concerns they have related to it as well. And so the burden is being shifted down to the county level. So I would like to have that discussion at some point, informally, just to see if anyone or how much everyone is aware of what's involved with this and how it will impact us. So it's something I'd like to put together if we can do sometime in the next couple of weeks or so and have that discussion.
Just one quick follow-up question. On those numbers you provided, I'm assuming that in juvenile and adults combined together with
No.
those? No, it's not? Oh, okay.
No, juveniles separate.
Okay, thank you.
With
Okay.
those, let me just, quick alibi, with those rare exceptions where they're certified up as an adult or unfit as a juvenile, but that's just a handful at max every month, probably no more than one or two.
Okay. Well, that was, if they were, my follow-up question was going to be, what would the percentage of juveniles within that? But that's a whole separate. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Report on Neighborhood Impact Program. Commissioner Harris.
This morning, what I thought that I would do is sort of go a house by house and let you know what it is that they're doing in the community. So with Linda Verde, June 21st is the grand opening for that particular neighborhood impact house. In the Trend area, I handed you a newsletter so you could take a look at what it is that we've been doing in the Trend neighborhood. But coming up next Saturday, we're working together with Lee's office, I believe, to do a presentation to the neighborhood regarding Neighborhood Watch and disaster preparedness. And so we're going to be doing that next Saturday. We're very excited about letting the community know about that. At Kingtree, they're going to have the kids create art, and then they're going to have an art show with the parents at the end of that particular time. So again, just trying to do activities to keep these kids out of trouble in these different areas. At Indian Sage, the kids are learning circus skills, specifically unicycling and juggling, and they absolutely love it. There is someone who is teaching them how to do that. They've been in the industry for a while, and they had taken that overseas, and so the kids are really getting a lot out of that. At Paiute, there is going to be a Memorial Day barbecue focusing on the families, and they're going to have family portraits, and the people are going to be able to sit for those portraits, and then they're going to be given to the families. They're going to have some summer movie nights in front of the house this year, and they're going to have a ballet dance class for the girls. Antelope Valley Partners for Health is just doing a wide range of activities as well. And Antelope Valley Partners for Health has a wellness home in each one of the neighborhood impact areas as well. And so they're doing things like mother-daughter night. They're starting a knitting class. They're having a coupon clipping luncheon. And then they're having another luncheon that's going to promote healthy interactions that's being led by a doctor. So all of these things we're just really glad to be a part of, and I encourage you to find out where these homes are and actually come and see these in action. I would love to have you come and visit any day of the week at the Paiute home between 3 and 5, or the Trend area. Come and see what it is that we're doing so you can kind of get a feel for exactly what it is that's going on. I can give you a list of activities maybe that would interest you if you want to watch the kids learning how to do this unicycling and juggling. I can tell you when you could come by and watch them. Elizabeth Brubaker has already been to the Paiute house, so I encourage you to call me and we can set something up.
Well, thank you so much. Definitely making a huge impact on these neighborhoods here. Okay, Mr. Dorico, you have the next two with the Business Watch Subcommittee, and maybe you could just follow up then with the Public Safety update as well, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As far as the Business Watch Subcommittee, I actually have been speaking to a couple of the retailers, and they've asked us to put off any meetings to July, okay? And the reason is they're all going through their end of fiscal year issues and vacations and different things as that's concerned. Also, we're still concentrating on our local smaller businesses, involving them in issues. Just recently, I've talked to several businesses on Sierra Highway who were victimized pretty heavily the last couple of weeks with vandalism and issues as it's related to them, some on Division, so we're going to incorporate them. There's some long-term businesses that exist there that are now going to participate in this program, so some desire on their part. We're excited about next week coming to the Trend Neighborhood Impact Home. We're going to be canvassing the neighborhood up until the date of the presentation, a week from Saturday. I'll make sure it's on everyone's calendar so you understand. It'll be in the afternoon, and it'll go from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, probably later, okay, but hopefully 2 to 5. And we're going to provide tables and chairs and a system for people to hear what's going on. We're really looking forward to that. We're going to have a CERT presentation incorporated into that. Captain Polgar is going to come and do a presentation as it relates to disaster preparedness. And I think the thing is for us is this is a good opportunity since we've had some reluctance by folks that live in that neighborhood to form individual groups. We're going to encourage them to come participate in this meeting and get involved on a smaller scale in their each neighborhood. Just based on the design of that neighborhood, it's too large to just have one neighborhood watch group. So we're going to try and seek some folks out there that are willing to take ownership of certain streets there and encourage them to move forward. And then this is an ongoing issue with some particular neighborhoods we have, and it may be a new strategy we can take in implementing our program in some of these more difficult neighborhoods that our neighborhood impact homes exist. So we can create that enthusiasm in those neighborhoods for people to participate. And it's an ongoing issue. So I'm looking forward to see how we can encourage folks to get involved, come and hopefully push for a good turnout at this and create that desire for them in that area. And then we're going to carry that same theme on to the other neighborhood impact homes as well, hopefully throughout the rest of the year, so we can encourage those neighborhoods all to become involved. So we have some very active groups, and then we have some not so active groups, and we're currently trying to go through and update all of them and get everyone up to their renewable status and get motivated. An example lately, and Captain Johnson brought up a great one, we have a really active group on the west side near Lancaster High School that there's been some significant arrests made by the core team in the area. We were suffering a great amount of vandalism on our west side parks as well as our Desert Wilderness Woodlands area, and the Trend neighborhood was suffering from the same group. The Corps deputies, since with a great amount of due diligence and working with our neighborhood watch groups in the area, identified the perpetrators in that area and arrested them recently. So, there's probably thousands of examples out there of community involvement in our community and how it relates to resolving some of these problems. So that's the direction we're going. Poppy Festival was a great success. Megan and Marlene did a great job putting that together. I want to thank all the agencies that came and represented their agency at the public safety area. We had a ton of stuff there for people to see, and the fire department's not here, but they roll in all their apparatus. This great presentation from the other law enforcement agencies in the community. So it was a very positive thing. That's it.
Okay, public business on the floor, non-agendized items. Did we have some non-agendized, Brett?
Yes, we have some speaker cards. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the Criminal Justice Commission on any item not on the agenda. State law prohibits the Commission from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter will be referred to staff. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. David Paul.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's always a pleasure to come. I'm always heartened by what I hear here. Commissioner Harris, you always have great things to say. I love the working with the kids. You know, that's always the challenge, to find the middle ground, the people that don't know the love and the value of loving and respecting the law, and those that are, for reasons that are largely beyond our control, emotional problems, fetal alcohol syndrome, extra Y chromosome, natural-born psychopaths. These are the things we can't do anything about, but there's a lot of people in the middle. And I was thinking about an incident, an event, a fun thing that happened with me. I was on a ride along with the Sheriff's Department, and we went to breakfast, and there was a bunch of the deputies there, and I was sitting there watching these guys, and I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if the general public could know how human these men are, how much alike the rest of us they are. You know, they have the same problems, they tell the same jokes, they pick on each other the same way, and it humanizes the people that are tasked to protect us. And there are people, I believe, that would be affected by that exposure. Not everybody, and some don't need it. But there are those that I've found. I talk to a lot of people, and that's because I like to talk to people. And I butt in conversations all the time, especially when it comes to public safety or our commission or council. And I know that there are a lot of people that just need a little encouragement to come over to the side of loving and respecting the law. That's why I was thinking, as part of the Human Relations Tapestry Commission that I'm now on, we have a program. You know, there's scrutiny, there'd be conditions, but some of these people might like some of those opportunities to have interactions with law enforcement, like the ride-alongs or other events that bring them into closer contact. And I think that that could benefit, because just, you know, I mean, we want to do big things, but sometimes it's just those little bitty things that matter. One person, there's more joy in heaven over one sinner that's converted, and, you know, you have to protect the 99 students instead of the one that's the most in danger, and it's hard to get the resources, but I just think that that's something that I'd like to see, is an attempt to adopt someone that's on the fence and turn them into a believer. So thank you again. It's wonderful what I see here. You're right, there's a tremendous cooperation in this room, and it's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Gary Burgess.
Good morning. My name is Gary Burgess. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm a citizen of Lancaster. A few of you may know me. I'd like to speak on the part where you brought up about keeping the citizens aware of what's going on in the neighborhood, and to speak about how do you get the citizens involved. And this is a puzzle I've been dealing with myself for about 5 years, as far as Neighborhood Watch and what's going on in the neighborhood. It seems like that when things are good, there's no reason to get involved, which pretty much says it. But then when things are bad, then people are scared to get involved. So it's like some people choose to not get too involved, other than, I think, when you get something going on your street, like myself, the people will call you. And I emphasize to them, I give them phone numbers. I call the Sheriff Department, call the city, call these other people. Yeah, I'll do it, but you need to be involved. And they just don't want to. I don't know why. But anyhow, so I think a good thing would be if block captains, at least, would be apprised of what's going on with the Sheriff Department, what's going on in the city. Because, like, when I have something happen on my street, all I know is what I can visually see just down the street, or I go get involved by checking out a house. Just like this morning, I was checking one out that I reported last week. It's open and accessible. Front door's been kicked in, the deadbolt blasted out of the door frame, and there's tools in there, and you can see where theft had been occurring. and I requested to have this house closed up. And unfortunately, our bureaucracy in the city works a certain way, and I work a different way. I want it done like yesterday, or at least I want it done by that afternoon or tomorrow. And so the thing is that if we don't know what's going on, like on the other end of the block, and something bad happens, then it'll just bleed over to my end. I've kept my end, or proud to say, maybe bragging or whatever. I've got a pretty nice neighborhood now, thanks to the city, thanks to the sheriff department, and a couple other citizens. But I'd like to keep it, or I plan on keeping it that way. It will not go back downhill. And the only way to do that is citizen involvement. The sheriff can't be there. We all know this, that they can't be there 24 hours a day and such. But I'd just like to say, just like last night, we had a shots fired on 5th Street right across from Paiute School. And the gentleman that works with me, or I work with him, we work together, he called it in, and thanks to our sheriff department, they responded quickly. Not anything you can do. If somebody drives by and shoots a gun, I mean, you know, what can the sheriff department do but other than make a presence for later or something? So it comes down to being informed, I think, because without being informed, you're not working with a full toolkit. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question real quick? Sure. You're involved with the Neighborhood Watch program, City of Lancaster, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are you familiar with the Yahoo groups?
I'm on the Yahoo group.
Oh, okay. Because that's what I thought would be the most useful tool in terms of doing exactly what you're asking, which is sharing communication. So you don't see that as being effective for you?
But you don't get, just like, okay, I'm trying to think of an incident on my street but if something happens down the other end of the street, there's a shooting, or, you know, the paramedics come, they take somebody out of the house. Unless I get real nosy and walk down and maybe can talk to a deputy, I volunteer at the station as a sheriff volunteer, and so have a little bit better contact that way. But unless I do that, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's a burglary that happened 5 houses down, because the neighbors don't usually tell you I was burglarized. They don't come to me and tell me that stuff. And the Yahoo group is great, but that's left up to the individual to put on the Yahoo group what's basically going on. And I don't know if it's a great idea to target addresses and give that out. Maybe that should be kept to a neighborhood watch person that could put a newsletter out and say to the neighborhood, say, we've had 4 burglaries in the last 2 weeks on our street. Keep your eyes open, you know. And so when that happens, I've done that, you know, and that might help some. But the Yahoo group is good, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I think the benefit of the crime mapping and the accessibility is going to alleviate a lot of that. And then as you can see, that we can build alerts and thresholds into things as well, okay, based on notifications. So that's part of how what we're looking for out of this conference that Jim's at is what some of the implementation is out there, how it's being implemented, how they're building those thresholds in it for communities and neighborhoods, and the accessibility, okay, and how do you maintain that. So some of those things we'll be bringing forward to you here in the near future on some ideas we have on implementation. And of course, you know, the good thing about being effective is you have to be flexible. So you got to be willing to change and try new things and get out of the box and not be afraid to do that. So obviously it'll be an ongoing issue, and as ideas come forward for betterment of programs or the facilitation of those programs, we need to look at them and not be afraid to try.
Well, and also you can provide as much information as you want. If people aren't interested in it, right, they won't pay attention. So I think you got kind of a best case scenario where you have, I mean, just in this meeting today, we hear of incidents of the public coming forward and helping and apprehending criminals. We have Mr. Burgess here telling us about, I need more information to help make my neighborhood safe. And we have the city saying, as we speak, we have people that are working on getting information out. So, I mean, when you have the desire to provide the information and also the desire to receive it and use it, then it seems to me like we're in a really good situation right now to address all those issues.
Plus, I'm just going to commend Gary. Gary's very active. Okay, I had the pleasure of on our Unite barbecue and spent the day with him, and he kept me pretty busy all day. But he's a active neighborhood watch block captain.
And I wanted to comment as well. I've watched Mr. Burgess over the years. I know in the last many years he's gotten very involved in everything going on in the city. But prior to that, he commented when he first came up that some of us may know him. I've known him. I was his newspaper boy, so that'll give you an idea. And he always had the Squared Away house and the Squared Away family, and he always was active and involved in everything. And it's great to see you here, and it's great to hear that you're still involved in helping the community in general. Thank you.
Just real quickly, I apologize for my dress. I was doing some work at the house and decided to go for a bike ride. My neighbor came over and told me about the shots fired, and I said, so we went and checked this house out down there that I'd reported last week. The doors are still open, so I took, so I turned it in on the city's website where we can report things. That's one of the best things the city has done for anybody's information, I think, to be able to report an incident, whether it's a house standing open or whatever, and that way it's got a number tagged to it. You can't escape answering it. It's not like, oh, I don't think we received that call. I don't remember. Somebody didn't make a note. So that's a great plus that the city has. I'll say that, and you can pass that along, which everybody knows I feel that way. But anyhow, have a good day.
Thank you.
He's talking about our Comcade system, which sometimes we feel like we're a slave to Comcade, but it is effective for getting information for people to be able to notify us, and it does require a response from the city department that it's addressed to or the individual. So thank goodness the girls check mine. Thank you.
David Aber.
Good morning, commissioners and staff and concerned citizens. I want to share some of my observations today. It occurred to me that, possibly commending this body for the great work that it seems to continue to do. It's really a pleasure to walk in here and see you guys actually, as you did with the marijuana issue, dissect things and have lively civil debates without a bunch of clowning around. And maybe, the city council can take a look at this meeting and see how professionally you guys run this meeting, and how you guys are able to be civil to one another, the citizens and the staff involved, in getting to the bottom of the things. You guys don't seem to jump to conclusions. You seem to have varied opinions. Resignation of Mr. Fuller and due process really hit home with me. I'm the biggest advocate of that and always will be. And I hope to have the faith that Mr. Fuller indicated in the criminal justice system to do its job, because I know I was wronged, and we need to make sure that that gets made right. But most importantly, when you guys are debating the issues, you seem to remove the appearance or the impropriety itself that I see at the council meetings. And, that's basically it. But it's just, you come in here and there's not the security at the door. The whole feeling in this room is relaxed, and we can civilly conduct the business of promoting the growth, the safety, and the future of Lancaster like civilized individuals that I believe that we all strive to be and hopefully are. And that's basically it in a nutshell. And, I just, like I said, I really it resonated in this room today that you guys are very professional. And hopefully the city council watches this meeting and takes a page out of how you guys conduct yourself. And hopefully the room at the city council meeting can get that vibe going where everybody's comfortable when we come to the meetings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nicole Parsons.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Do you mind reading just the points. I put 5 to make it easier. On the card, I just 1 through 5, I made the points. Or just, can I see the card?
You need to discuss what you want to discuss with
On
the
the card,
commission. They don't have your questions.
My card, I need my card, because I needed to just go over what I want. Sorry, that's why I asked you here. I'll skip to yours, Ms. Harris. That really, hi. I don't. Your neighborhood houses are really the only thing that's probably gonna like survive, as in like something solid. Because I don't really think the way that you guys are going, I don't think that any Justice Department that I know of are really gonna give you guys like the continued collaboration commission type thing here. Because there's a lot of ineffectiveness too. That website for perhaps Mr. Dorico is you have to tippy toe around it, and you can't really report anything because it'll just block you off if you try to say that. Oh my gosh, I'm like, I lost my cell phone, and then it'll we can't handle that, and it'll catch you out of it. There's Mr. Burgess had mentioned some type of safety collaboration, as well as the children. And so I didn't even have to look very far. I just got this right here. And this is some very important stuff like preparedness. Hey, I think I need to get a start over anyways, and that's too much because people like me maybe could get an extra 5 minutes, and not that I'm crazy, but I feel rushed, and sometimes. So I don't even know if it's your brother or you, but you have this foundation anyways for children. So there's a design in there that's awesome bomb, and then for Mr. Burgess, there's a design in there too for public safety. So I was just gonna submit it with your guys' Kevin, Grand Slam thing, but I want to tell all you guys that, I got 29 seconds, that these guys are like sharks. They'll take your package if you're not smart, and then they'll change it around, and then they'll give it out and say that it's theirs, and it's ineffective, and that's the problem they have now. So if you guys wanted to also do something as well as some real consumer protection, you guys might let us, the people patent something or let the attorney for our benefit, but not to sue you guys, work with the public as an extension, part of the extension package, his expertise, and that would be something that a Justice Commission could do, and a Department of Justice that I would know.
Thank you very much.
I have his. He wanted verification. I have a trail number that you can follow. That
we'll get it. Thank you.
There are no more speaker cards.
Thank you very much. Commissioner comments. Any comments this afternoon? Okay. Hearing none, this meeting stands adjourned at about noon, and we'll meet again on the 8th of June. Thank you.